All right, at the PGA show still, and we are in the Srixon Cleveland booth. And it is rolling in here, okay? For a normally second day, normally you see a downturn. I don't think we're seeing that here. And so we're going to be talking about, we got Dustin, my new favorite R&D guy with Cleveland Srixon, and we're going to go over the new Zx5 or Zx5, depending on where you're at, and 7, and the technologies, and what's going to turn your head in some of these things in order so that your scores can go low. So let's get to it. Let's talk about some irons.
Yeah, absolutely. So both the Zx7 and Zx5 irons here. These are evolutions. They're Mark II generation, carrying on from last year. So that's the MK2 that's on the product. Srixon irons about premium feel, premium performance, tour feedback, tour authentic feedback. So changes are gradual. They're evolving. They're constantly narrowing for more precision, more performance. So I think just immediately, like, beautiful product. That's what's going to be immediately received.
We saw that and from the original to the Mark II, when we first saw them, the word that I came across was very clean.
Very clean.
Much cleaner than the previous years.
Yeah.
And with the accents of the chrome in the certain spots, it gives it a thinner appearance.
Yeah.
Also in the back.
Yeah, there is, especially in this trailing edge kind of grind here, some extra reflectivity that you don't perceive, so a bit of a thinner appearance. But a lot of the focus in this generation, similar in size and shape product, but a focus on how the sets match together, the ZX7, ZX5, and even into the utilities and ZX4, and making those consistent sets for making a lot of combos.
I like combo sets. They really, I don't think people do enough of that. To be honest with you,
I think there's an opportunity to get the most you can out of each of those products,
sure,
loft dependent.
All right. So what is some of the technologies that we should expect out of the ZX series in the way of irons?
Yeah, absolutely. So in the ZX7 series, what we have in this generation is pure frame technology. So we've talked about mass behind the ball. This is the better player that's impacting, near center. But what we've done is we've added this pure frame technology, which is how much mass and material and the structure of it behind impact to give it that pure blade feel that you get with otherwise a pure blade style. So still some pocket cavity for some amount of weight distribution, but for the most part, we're focusing on how can we get that premium feel at impact for this better player.
And that's what I noticed was different here. So you may not be able to see it right now, but in the cavity area, instead of being flat like you would see in a traditional cavity, right? It comes to a point in the middle, almost like that. In the middle to get, and that's just more weight behind the ball.
It's lined up behind the ball. Our analysis and simulations show that this is going to add strength, add stiffness to those center face shots. So that's technology we wouldn't necessarily carry into your game improvement product where you're hitting all over, but for this player type it's adding to that feel.
Okay, so now for some folks that may not be familiar with the Srixon product, we see two different sets. We have a leading edge and we have a trailing edge. Why do we do that?
We do that you need bounce, first of all.
Sure.
Otherwise your leading edge is going to dig into the ground.
Absolutely.
What we have found with this sole is that versus a mild amount of bounce that's across the whole sole, we increase the bounce on the leading edge to get that added resistance to diving to chunking, to dipping into the ground.
Anti-shovel.
Yeah. I mean, barefoot skiing, anything like you need to have your toes above or you're going to dig. So adding that extra angle of bounce. But if we continue that for the whole wedge, it would be too much. Like, it would be hard to get under the ball. You'd hit too many thin shots. So the trailing edge half there is to get you through the turf after you've impacted the ball, made consistent impacts, but then to be able to continue through the divot, continue through the turf. And it's just a sole that we've had for many generations now, as far as the concept there of the V sole. that's been so well received on tour and better players, and it's stuck with the product.
So do these numbers, the leading edge, what would be, we'll say, a traditional bounce kind of measurement versus a trailing, do these change for each iron, or are they pretty much universal until you start getting into the higher lofts?
They definitely change for each iron. They're very dependent on the sole width, for how much. If a ZX4 product that's a wider sole, that V could get really large if you're continuing at certain angles, but a narrower sole, you can kind of go up and down, if you will, and achieve that added bounce with some relief. So it is dependent. The sole width, the leading angle, the trailing angle, those all play into like an effective bounce. That's hard to communicate as a single number, but is very player dependent and very swing and ability dependent.
Now the last bit in here, we're really concentrating on the sole, but that's important. It's your contact in the ground, right? So you have the V sole, and it runs the length of the sole of itself until you get more into the heel area, and then it digs down. Why did we change that?
This is for some just prevention of that heel dragging. Maybe you're on up different lies, or you're coming in a little bit flat. Like, we need the bounce here to make sure if you do happen to hit the ground a little bit behind the ball, that you're not going to lose your ball speed. But out on the extreme heel and toe, it can just create too much drag. It can you drag here, it's going to turn the club over right before impact. You're going to lose control of your aim. So the combination of some added bounce with some relief, if you will, it's really just been an effective performance attribute for us.
Okay, so we have a really cool sole design. They've been taking into consideration really turf interaction has been their big thing.
Absolutely.
And then we have more mass behind the ball, and I'm telling you right here, it's cleaner. It really is. It's just a really nice look. Now it says forged. What is it? A one-piece forge?
This is a one-piece forge. The ZX7's one-piece forge.
So what do we use? What's the metal that we use?
It's a 1020 steel one-piece forge. Yeah.
Okay. And then now when we look at the face, is that part of the forging process?
The grooves are still milled.
Okay.
But the face is absolutely forged flat, and is controlled, and you're getting that that pure feel for your earlier impact.
Right. So what you can do is you can go out there onto the internet, and you'll see some of the folks when they do forging that they're either milled in, like you were saying, or it's a press, and then they maybe sand it off because you can create some of the bumps from the pressing. Right.
You can get outside of the groove some other increases, and there are techniques to control that as well with multi-pressing process, so you're not packing it quite so hard and creating that like flash.
Now the last part about this, and when you're talking about a better player's iron, is always the top line.
Yeah.
We always got to have that thinner top line and stuff. And this one is squared off. You normally don't see that a lot. You see them kind of radiused a little bit, and it's got the satiny finish on top to make it kind of smaller. And it's actually it's not butter knife small, but it's really doggone close.
It is, and I think a focus for us this generation is matching this top line thickness through the other sets too. So in the ZX5 and even into the utilities and the ZX4, that's something that's really going to add to that combo setting, that option. When you start to want more forgiveness of the ZX5 we're about to talk about in your longer irons, you can pair that in, and you're not getting a big jump in visuals or a distraction that you're curious about.
All right, so the ZX5, that was a heck of a lead-in. How about that?
Yeah.
What is different in the 5 versus the 7?
So what the 5's doing is cavitying it out the center, right? So it has deep undercut. It's got a two-piece construction. So this is a high-strength face that's really trying to get your distance back. So in the longer irons, the player that can't gap and control his gaps in his 3, 4, 5 iron, at the abilities of a more workable product, then you need a more forgiving product. And it's doing that by taking material out, a high strength, lightweight steel face, and being able to distribute that more through the sole and the top line and toe here.
So they're still calling this the pure frame. It's just that we've layered some weight across the bottom, and with that,
so this has mainframe technology. So pure frame.
Okay.
We still have kind of shape here to tie it into the line, but this is in a medallion that's for face absorption. Mainframe technology is our variable face thickness. our variable face pattern.
Oh, okay.
So
what
that's
are we
we
seeing
have
with
a thinner section in the center and then a couple grooves of channel away material. So we're saving mass from the face, but also trying to open up that sweet spot, you know, much like a driver, the variable face design. Open up that sweet spot to where you're getting maximum distance control on an off-center impact.
Now, does that normally change as it goes up through the set again? Is that when we go from, say, that 3, go for that 3, and we go down to the
it
the
does
pitch and
vary
wedge?
through the set. In the long irons, the 3 through 7, it's similar, but it's tuned to each face shape. And then in the 8 and the 9, it tones down a little bit to where it doesn't have the all of the same channels. As your loft gets higher, you know, it's far less of a impactful, you're glancing over, you're cutting under, you're more about spin, and you're just not chasing distance, you know, typically at that point. Like,
Truly.
the player with some help is trying to get some of that distance control on his mishits as the irons get longer.
Now, in looking at this a little closer on the face, is there's something going on in between the grooves?
There is. There's laser engraved grooves pattern that are in between. So that's to help with the actual like face friction and texture in between. So the grooves channel away the debris, you know, your chunks of grass, but then you need friction on that face to be able to actually put spin onto the ball.
See, you finally. Okay, so here's some.
Got an answer?
No. So here's the thing. What are grooves for? Oh, they impart spin. No, that's the face.
Yeah.
What do grooves do? They make the stuff go away. The debris, all the water, channel the water.
Tread and tires.
You'd be surprised. That's such a chicken or egg kind of conversation with people that don't that don't design stuff, right? And you're like, oh no, no, not really, and that's not what it does.
Yeah, the grooves, edges. It's all about cutting away that material, channeling away that material. If in perfect dry conditions off a tee, you could take the grooves off and get more spin.
Surely.
You know, because now you have more contact surface area with the golf ball, more frictions impacting on the golf ball. But you would be absolutely out of luck everywhere else on the course. Right. And so, you know, this is, you know, absolutely the benefits of the design.
Now, this also is a forged club, as you said. Is this the same 1020?
It's the same 1020, but that's in the body construction.
Okay.
And then it has the high-strength SUP 10 steel that's in the face for maximum ball speed.
So if you were, just like we're going back, we're talking about combo setting now.
Yeah.
If you had to say this is what would be the most accepted combo set, where would you start and where would you end?
I would say the most common is probably switching out that 3 and 4 in your like Zx7 set for a Zx5, or potentially a utility depending on the shape in it. You know, there's a little extra length with the utility, maybe graphite shaft, so maybe you're not looking for that option. But the 3, the 4, and then sometimes the 5 is probably the most common makeup in the combo setting.
All right, and now I know we don't have one, but the Zx4 is going to be the most forgiving, the biggest setup, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah.
And in this instance, we were just talking before coming on. The Zx4 is so much more clean. It's the biggest improvement from last year to this year. It looks like the set.
Right.
And it's going to be for those guys looking for the most forgiveness, for a very, very clean look.
Yeah.
Would we still call it a hollow body design?
It's definitely still hollow body.
Okay.
And it's still a high strength face, and the hollow body allows us to distribute the mass to make it maximum forgiveness. But significant attention to these are going to be combo. We want these to fit together. Like you just said, we want it to match the set, have the same communication of premium. And so the attention to top line, or your perceived visual top line, the attention to the progression of sole widths and head shape from the ZX7s to the 5s to the 4s and utilities. Like the whole set has really been conscious this year.
The last part before moving on, as far as loft progressions, right? Obviously the 4s are going to be the strongest of the plan.
Yep.
And so do we know what a 5 iron is in that group?
A 5 particularly, I think it's 23 and a half.
Yeah, maybe.
Does that sound right? The 7 iron is 28 and a half.
Okay, we'll
so
go
the
with
7
that.
irons are most common fitting iron.
Okay.
And that one is going to be like 28 and a half in a ZX4 and then I believe 31 and 32 in these sets. So there is a progression.
So these aren't too far apart. So
these
really,
aren't
truly,
too far apart.
Truly, combo setting here is just a quick tweak, and you're pretty much right in line,
it's pretty quick.
one way or the other.
Yeah. The ZX4 is a bit more of a jump, if you will, and that's the player that really in their, after their 6-iron and their 5-4, like they're losing gaps, nearly entirely. 4 irons are going the same distance as 5 irons when they're in these products. So like getting the stronger loss, being able to, even though it looks, on paper doesn't match the set, like that's what it's there for, to be able to get your distance back when you're comparing it with others in the set. Does that make sense?
Yep, it makes sense. So here we go, 4s, 5s, 7s, the most forgiving, and then the guy would call it like a player's distance model.
Absolutely, that's
and then a player's model.
Yeah.
And then is the blade still available?
There is.
I've seen
too.
Does it still have the wave on it?
It does.
Okay.
Yeah, it's similar kind of the bow tie, if you will, but mass behind the ball is still extremely critical there. So that's a very workable product. So
you basically what you're doing is you're covering all facets of the golfer spectrum, basically, in order to get it out there
with the premium and just full family design concept.
Very cool. Now, going on, everybody. Yeah, we talked about that. Srixon really is. Everybody knows that they make great irons.
Yep.
And the hard thing to do in almost every category, in a category, is breaking into drivers.
Yeah.
Right. And so now we got some new drivers. And,
here, why don't you hold?
And he told me about a new one as we were walking up here. I was like, oh, okay. So we got
Zx5 and Zx7, new Mark II generation.
Mm-hmm.
So this, we have an evolvement, increase in rebound frame. So we can talk more about that, exactly what performance, but so higher ball speeds, more advanced from last generation. But the big difference between Zx7 and Zx5 model is similar to our naming scheme. So this is a more workable, slightly shallower product. The Zx5 is a larger product, larger footprint, more forgiving. And this is more that, really highest level player that's looking to work shots on drives, prefers a fade bias because he's trying to take left out of play from that miss hit.
So are these both 460 heads? They're just different shapes, or is this a smaller head?
They're both 460 heads, but it's the depth in particular.
Right, so if you were to look at these, and you won't be able to see it from back there, but the face height on the 7 it's noticeably taller.
Yeah, and the kind of dome of the crown as well, which is,
And typically when you go taller, you got to give up a parameter somewhere else.
Yeah.
And so it becomes a smaller head, and the better player tends to like that smaller look at address.
The smaller top-down address, as well as just that weight distribution, is less critical here because we don't need to maximize MOI. We're actually wanting to leave some forgiveness available.
Yeah, the idea of workability, so to speak, is that word. But this one has the 2 weights on either side of it. Are they significant weights, or are they just there to help?
They're significant, or they can be with the fitting set. So I think stock is maybe an 8 and 2 or 8 and 4, and you can flip those and you can get some differences. But with the custom options all the way up to 14 grams and 2 grams, you can get quite a transition. In our robot testing, we'll see a 20-yard difference left to right from just that 14-2 switch. So
that's humongous.
The variability, the control is there.
Okay, so let's just hit the rebound frame right now.
Yeah.
So rebound frame, what's it going to do for all the golfers out there?
Rebound frame is our face trampoline technology. So it's a lightweight, thin as possible, very flexible face insert, but then surrounded with a frame, a curvature. Again, hard to see on camera, but you'll notice that there's just more rounded here and here compared to any other product you're going to see out there.
Right.
It does sacrifice face size a little bit, but getting that extra curvature, what it's doing is, because then after that, we have a very strip of thin steel, thin titanium. And that becomes like kind of a second buckle zone, a second spring zone, that if you don't have the rounded curve, which provides inherent stiffness, then you can't extend that energy to the next buckle zone behind it. So we visualize it as a trampoline. You bounce in the center, it has a frame around it, and then it's on legs, and then it's on the ground. Imagine now, instead of the rigid legs, we make a spring for your trampoline legs on top of the rigid ground. So like the whole system just has more energy, acquiring and return to the golf ball.
Okay. And if you look down on there, I mean, with some just subtle differences, they're very, very similar.
Very similar. It's definitely about the number, cues you into the forgiveness and the size. That can be maybe hard to see in the naked eye alone. But then, of course, it's the weights that are the difference. So the Zx5, maximum depth on the weight here. We're trying to get high launches.
Oh, yeah.
We're trying to maximize forgiveness.
So
this has much more of a draw bias to it, straight to draw for the player that's looking for that category.
So the more weight, so again, this one is a little more balanced out. This one has the weight all on the back, and the more weight we put in the back, it pulls center of gravity back and gives you that little back.
It pulls it back, which helps the club to dynamically loft higher during the swing. But also as it pulls back, it causes the sweet spot to project a bit higher, which can add some spin. So this is our mid-spin driver, which segueing again brings us to our newest offering here is the Zx5 Low Spin model, where we've brought the weight forward.
I am so intrigued with this one because I chop wood, man. I'm a spinner of the golf ball.
Yeah.
Anything where you put weight going forward towards the face, that's the spin killing move, right? And I am all about that.
Right, and we're seeing awesome feedback in response to this. So fitting it into still a max forgiveness, you're sacrificing a little bit of that forgiveness by bringing it forward, but the amount you can bring that CG down and create impacts above center gravity that are going to help knock off spin. Several hundred RPM difference in between these models that is just a really exciting offering that there's a lot of buzz about this week.
So literally, it's this. Can we say it's literally the same shape? We just moved the weight from the back to the front.
Yes, and I think some of the weight distribution on the inside is modified as well, but just the discretionary mass and control.
All right.
But yes, same shape, same maximum footprint size here for forgiveness.
All right. So the last part on most of these is that the real fancy shape and the whole 9 yards. They normally have some sort of, they have the super funky looking crown on the top.
Yeah.
These sound like they're metal.
These are titanium crowns, so not a carbon composite crown. There's trade-offs to the options. The carbon composite is trying to maximize weight removed to be able to bring it low. We're attacking that with the models, and specifically, making a low spin model available. What we find with with our rebound frame technology in particular, where we're trying to, control this curvature and this stiffness region. Like if we then connect to a carbon crown, you now have your layup section where the carbon's gluing, attaching to the titanium. You have to do certain things for manufacturability. We lose some of our control to optimize that rebound frame performance.
Okay.
So we actually get more ball speed from this crown than what an alternative, the previous generation, would have had in it. So minor sacrifices there in the CG height, but with the model options, like you're getting all your spin options and weight adjustments. So we think a good trade-off for the whole set.
Okay, and the last part is every one of these models is adjustable.
Yes.
And what do we go? Is it a plus 2, minus 2, or how do we do this?
It's 1 degree in each direction. So you have the standard loft, and then being able to adjust it more flat. So usually these better players are looking for the option to again take kind of left out of play to get if they're to steer away from it, but. So naturally, that's adjust the face angle as well as you adjust loft, to just give you more of that control.
All right, and of course the last question that's always near and dear to my heart is the left-handed options.
Yeah.
Are we all left-handed, or are some that are not? Because I know the 7s and the 5s and the irons will be lefty. Yeah. And now the driver.
The driver, I believe, will be available in lefty as well, but it may be more limited lofts.
Oh yeah. We don't.
Than what's in here.
Normally it's 10-5, and you're right in the middle of the road, and that's fine.
Yeah.
That hits most of it. That's under the bell curve. That's a smart play.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is. It's a good smart play. So what have we now? The last part is we get outside the R&D.
Yeah.
We have we're offering a hazardous silver.
Yeah. Well, So in the Zx7 and the Zx5 LS, it's our hazardous, smoke gray RDX, I believe. I think the sticker's covering it here. And then in the Zx5, it's the hazardous RDX red. So the next evolution of the hazardous product from Project X, that's versus our Mark 1 designs.
So we got upgraded drivers, and that technology has fallen its way into the fairway woods and the hybrids.
Yes.
And then we get into, we got a new cleaner setup in the irons, and all the way down with combo setting. All right, dude.
Yeah.
You guys are looking to have a pretty good year this year.
We've had a good week. We've had a lot of excitement. For me, the R&D side, to get out and kind of see this whole side and hear the feedback directly, it's been extremely positive. It's really exciting.
Really, they'll be going golf ball what?
Yeah. Please, that'd be great. Yeah.
That'd be good. All right, Dustin, so thank you so very much. It was a pleasure meeting you.
Yeah, it's nice to meet you too.
All right, so again, PGA Show, check out the new Srixon lineups. I don't think you'll be unhappy. It'll be really good. And again, if you have any questions, put them in the show notes below. We'll ask Dustin again, I'm sure. And let's see your scores. Go low.